Smee with the Manly Observer, and I'm here today with Peter Lawrence. He's a restoration volunteer with the Harbour Trust. We are at North Head in Manly. Later on, we're going to go with Ron Ray, who is also a volunteer guide, through the secret tunnels of North Head. Plotting room has not been accessible to the public ever until now.
That's correct.
Great. So please tell us a little bit, what is the plotting room?
As you'll find later on in the tour, that the plotting room is the heart of the operation of the battery. So the plotting room took the data of potential enemy shipping, converted it into firing data, and then transferred that to the two guns, which you'll see, or the gun emplacements. So it was the heart, it was the control centre, really provided communications, information, and centralisation of all of the defence of Sydney during World War II.
Let's go check it out.
Let's do it. This is the changing areas, and then they go next door. Each of these doors is an airlock, so that if there was a gas attack, they could be closed and locked. This is again just a dogleg airlock in here. What's important is that the room had this insulation throughout it, or the rooms. So there are two basic rooms here. This is called the battery plotting room. Gun position officer is an officer that controls basically the guns. Here is a photograph of what was here, a computer. So a fairly advanced, when you think 1940, was put in 1938. It was able to take the location of a ship and predict where the ship would be after the guns had fired, because you have a time of flight. So some targets would be 25 seconds away from when they're fired. So the ship is zigzagging. They've got to put into account where it will be, trying to forecast where a fly is when you go to swat it. And all of those go into the computer and it spits out information electronically straight down to the gun position. Okay, so this is the second room, and I think is the most important room in the building. This is called the Fortress plotting room. What happened was that there were a number of high points: North Head, Hornby, which is the South Head light, Dover Heights, and then down further to the south is Banks Battery. And there was a 9.2 inch battery here, two guns, and two guns down at Banks Battery. And these are what's called a range arc, and it shows you how far out each of the batteries could engage a target.
Okay.
So what happens is, Dover Heights, the observation post is sitting there, bang, see a ship, don't know who it is. They have a surveyed range finder, and they look around, they see the ship, they put a fixation or fix on it and send a message back to here. Somebody else sees the ship from North Head at the observation post and swings around to what the range was for it there. And then these AWARs, are then following the ship as it moves. The range, as the ship moves, maybe it's moving that way, they keep on plotting it and they come up with a location which is then sent through to the battery plotting room, which then calculates the engagement.
I'm here with Ron Ray. He's a volunteer tour guide and ex-artillery with the Harbour Trust, and we're about to go through the North Head tunnels and fortifications.
See you.
Ron, one thing I've noticed is there's a lot of water around, which is what I didn't expect.
So what happened, they started building the tunnels in 1936, and it took 6 years to build them. with depression labour. About halfway through building the tunnels, they struck a natural spring on the headland where they were building it, water gushing everywhere. So they thought, what are we going to do? They needed water supply for the tunnels, so they built these channels as drainage ditches, but also, as you can see down there, the water flowing through on the side. Every metre, the tunnel drops by a centimetre down this way, and then when we get to the joining point, the other way, and the spring ran into the channels. So the sandstone filters the water, keeps it crystal clear, it goes to a little reservoir, and they had their own water supply.
Do we know where the water's coming from?
Just a natural spring, just comes out of the ground. Never runs dry. So the water on the headland obviously gathers in this spot. There's a spring, and that's where the water just bubbles up from. There are 26 air vents in the tunnels. No motors to push air in and out because a motor would reveal where the tunnel was. On each of the funnels there's a vane. So one type of funnel pushes air in, another one sucks the air out. So just by automatic movement of the wind around the tunnels, it pushes air down and keeps it at a nice 22 degrees.
Because it feels fresh in here. It doesn't have
it's
that.
fresh, there's no mould. When the army was here, we used to bulldoze the bush once a month to keep it at knee height. So the wind would work on these veins. Now it's all about the bush and the flora and the fauna and the animals, and it's all grown.
Yeah.
But we didn't have it anywhere near that high.
Yeah.
It was knee high for line of sight, and to let the wind work the veins through the tunnels.
Nature was just an
Nature
inconvenience.
doing its thing. So these are all plastic dummies. This is a real shell here with the explosive taken out of it. So you can see 9.2 inch refers to the diameter of the shell. So it was a 9.2 inch gun. And the shell weighs 175 kilograms. So it was what 2 fit young men could pick up and manoeuvre around. The shell's the weapon. That's the thing that goes bang on the target. One of these will get the shell 5 kilometres, 210, 315, 425 kilometres. So depending on the plotting room, telling the gun where the target is, they would tell them what type of shell, armour piercing, high explosive, how many of these to put in. That's all done.
What's it made of?
Steel and high explosive inside, and on the end there would be a fuse, and the fuse would be set to have the shell explode on impact or after a certain time in the air. There's a little gadget that goes on top, and the corporal of the gun would set that, okay? And the moment that ticks over in time, bang, the shell would go off. Or he would set it so it explodes on impact.
Okay.
So the shells were kept here, and in the other room, that's where the cordite charges were kept. And the reason they separated them was the belief that if something went bang here, it wouldn't go bang in there. Wishful thinking. If something went bang, it would all go bang. In my recollection, there was never an accident because you had a sergeant sitting here as well, and he'll be watching, all well trained. The gun would fire one round every 20 seconds, so they practiced all the time. And the sergeant would be watching, and if he saw something happening that wasn't correct, I won't yell too loudly, he'd yell out, "Check fire!" And the moment you hear check fire, you freeze, because he's seen something that's unsafe or not being done properly. For example, if I wanted to get a cartridge out of there, I said, "Cartridge please," and I went through that door there and hit the ground, bang. So I order a cartridge. I pull the light on, I take the cartridge. And with the mirror, it tells me there's nobody behind me, so I can turn around safely and tear the cartridge.
Right, that's right.
Now I've got the cartridge,
Yeah.
somebody else can come over here and get a cartridge from over here. But if I've done something stupid and the sergeant's watched me and he's seen me go, "Hello Billy, how are things going?" "Oh, leave the cartridge." Right?
Yeah.
Kick in the backside.
Yeah,
What are you doing?
yeah.
So,
And this is the lights that, or the style of lights that they would have had.
yes, and they were special bulbs so they wouldn't ignite anything. So it's simple, but it works.
Oh wow. It's just incredible. I'm in one of the underground tunnels in North Head, which we didn't even know existed, or I didn't know existed. We're doing a tour with Ron Ray, who's an ex-artillery, and he's an official guide with the Harbour Trust. It's quite incredible. Take a look.
So this is the where the tunnels join here. You can see it's crystal clear water.
Beautiful.
It's the engine room. So these were two big diesel motors, and the fuel tanks for the engines were in these two alcoves here. And these pipes means you could fill the tanks up of diesel from above ground. And the idea was you'd have one running, providing power to the whole site through this huge switchboard behind us. And if something happened to the motor and it couldn't keep running, turn it off, start the other one, repair this one. So there's always one running and one ready to back up. And it was completely independent of the city power supply. So if the city was being attacked, the guns could still operate independently. I'm told one of these is big enough to provide power to a town, something the size of Dubbo or Orange. So they're pretty powerful. And no safety in those days. You know, you simply would pull on the power to one of these things, big flash, and away the power would go. So they had you can see in the picture up there, they had overalls on and earmuffs because it was pretty noisy down here, but no health and safety in those days. Again, you simply, so that would be off, and to pull it on, you push it on and away goes the power. And you can see, if you don't know, but the amperage is really high. Yeah. And then the little booth here, that was a communications booth because it was so noisy in here, that booth was soundproofed. So you could go in there and get on the telephone or on a radio and actually hear what was going on. The sound from the engine room wouldn't penetrate through there. So again, you can see how far below ground we are.
So Ron, we've just finished the tour. It was really fascinating. It was much more elaborate actually than I expected.
So the Trust calls it the Defence of Sydney tour because it incorporates, you know, the guns, the Defence of Sydney Memorial, talking about the midget submarine attack in May 1942, going through the tunnels, and then the plotting room.
It's absolutely fascinating. Look, I really appreciate it. It's a tunnel.
Yeah. It's
a tunnel.
That's right.
Well, it's a series of tunnels. I'll put the details up on our website. Thanks again, Ron.
My pleasure.
Have a good rest.